time long, long ago, in a land whose borders touched the very rivers of Egypt, stretching from the broad banks of the Red Sea all the way to the dusky walls of Damascus. O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, if I forget thee, O Jerusalem, let my right hand forget her cunning. In 70 AD, Jerusalem was conquered and destroyed by Rome, by the iron fist of Titus, prophesied and foretold by Hamashiach himself. And according to Josephus, the Jerusalem demise was etched in the stars by various signs and wonders ignored by the children of Judah. A star, resembling a sword, which stood over the city, and a comet that continued a whole year. Thus, before the Jews' rebellion and before those commotions which preceded the war, when the people were come in great crowds to the feast of unleavened bread on the 8th day of the month of Nisan, and at the 9th hour of the night, so great a light shone round the altar and the holy house that it appeared to be bright daytime, which lasted for half an hour. This light seemed to be a good sign to the unskillful, but was so interpreted by the sacred scribes as to portend those events that followed immediately upon it. At the same festival also a heifer, as she was led by the high priest to be sacrificed, brought forth a lamb in the midst of the temple. Moreover, the east gate of the inner court of the temple, which was of brass and vastly heavy, and had been with difficulty shut by 20 men, rested upon the basest arm with iron, and had bolts fastened very deep into the firm floor, which was there made of one entire stone, was seen to be opened of its own accord, 6th hour of the night. Now those that kept watch in the temple came hereupon, running to the captain of the temple, and told him of it. The temple, the doors of the temple are opened. Who then came up thither, and not without great difficulty was able to shut the gate again. This also appeared to the vulgar to be a very happy prodigy, as if God had thereupon opened them the gate of happiness. But the men of learning understood it, that the security of their holy house was dissolved of his own accord, and that the gate was open for the advantage of their enemies. So these publicly declared that the signal foreshadowed the desolation that was coming upon them. Besides these, a few days after the feast, on the 1 and the 20th day of the month, a certain prodigious and incredible phenomena appeared. I suppose the account of it would seem to be a fable, were it not related by those that saw it, and were not the events that followed it of so considerable a nature as to deserve such signals. For before sunsetting, chariots and troops of soldiers in their armor were seen running about among the clouds and surrounding of cities. Moreover, at that feast, which was called Pentecost, as the priests were going by night into the inner court of the temple, as their custom was, to perform their sacred ministrations, they said that in the first place they felt a quaking, and heard a great voice, and after that they heard a sound of a great multitude, saying, "Let us remove from hence." But what is still more terrible, there was one Jesus, the son of Ananus, a plebeian, and a husbandman, who 4 years before the war began, and at the time when the city was in very great peace and prosperity, came to that feast, whereon it was our custom for everyone to make tabernacles to God in the temple, began on a sudden to cry aloud. Shalom, shalom, Miss Picard. Shalom, shalom, family. Hopefully everyone's doing well, doing good. Hey, family, if we could please let's just do a quick sound check. If my audio sounds okay, if you could please just put a 1 in the chat. If my audio sounds okay, if we could please just put a 1 in the chat. Again, hopefully everyone's doing well. Thank you, everyone, for dialing in, for logging in. Thank you, Miss Picard. See the ones in the chat. So looks like we're good as far as audio. Well, family, here we are again. Here we are again. I think you'll find this, Most High willing, you'll find this information interesting, just to say the least. So, if you haven't noticed, family, and actually this kind of took me off guard. And shout out to Elder Morey Dawid, because I was talking to Elder Morey Dawid not too long ago. And he brought up, he was like, yeah, Benaiah, I mean, you got the 9th of Av coming up? And I was like, whoa. The 9th of Av? Like the 9th of Av? He was like, yeah. And so basically, family, I had no idea that the 9th of Av was this week. And actually, depends on, when you count your Hebrew day. Some people count it at sundown. If you do count it at sundown, it would be now, at least over in the East Coast. Or, some people count it during the daytime when the sun comes up. So either way, it'll run through this evening to tomorrow evening, I guess through Tuesday evening, which is the 9th of Av. And I guess the purpose for this video, family, or this lesson is to show you some important things about the 9th of Av, especially at this day and age, especially after we've had the solar eclipse, after we've had the Aleph and the Tav being written across the U.S. And, and you can see, we have all kinds of we have all kinds of unrest going around the world, especially with Iran. And guess what, family? This is, you got Israel on pins and needles waiting for Iran to make their move. And again, what we've talked about before, and it's beyond the scope of this lesson, but Iran is the Medes. Like, they are the biblical Medes. Like, if you look up the Medes you get you a Bible atlas from like a Christian bookstore, and then look at the table of nations, or what you'll find, family, is, or if you get like an old map, you will see that the Persian Medo Empire has always been where Iran is. I mean, of course, it's bigger than just Iran is today, but that is the heart of that, empire back then. It's the territory of Iran. So Iran, they are the Medes. And according to scripture, the Medes are supposed to destroy the descendants of Esau. And we'll speak a little bit about that today, family, because I know there's still some confusion, or at least, praise YAHUAH, not on this channel, not among the community that dial in here, but there are those that especially in different religions or whatnot, family, they're trying to sow those seeds of confusion and try to make Iran out to be the God, Gog and Magog and stuff like that, and that's way off. So anyway, but let me show you this, family. Like I said, I don't want to keep you long, and that's actually why we started the lesson a little bit earlier than we normally do. But check this out, family. It says, this is from the Jerusalem Post. And it says, Iran plans to attack Israel on Tisha B'Av, which is the 9th of Av, the Jewish Day of Disaster report. Now, why would the Jerusalem Post think that Iran would attack Israel on the 9th of Av? Like, what do they know that we don't know here in the States? That's a question, family. What does the Israelis or the Jewish know that we don't know here in the States about Iran and about what is to befall Esau? Right? What's the fate of Esau? So let's read a little bit about that. So in the book of Obadiah, Obadiah only has one chapter, and this is one of those chapters that not a whole lot of folks read on Sunday morning, but Obadiah is a whole book dedicated to decreeing and declaring the destruction of Esau, the descendants of Edom, and how the Most High is going to basically wipe him out, family. And in the book of Obadiah, you see in chapter 1, verse 7 or 15, you'll see that, the prophecy is that, or what the Most High has decreed and declared what he's going to do to Esau. He says, as you have done, as thou hast done, it shall be done unto thee. So check that out, family. So the Most High has promised Esau that as you have done is going to come back on you, right? As you have done unto the children of Israel is going to come back on you. And what we're going to do, family, we're also going to read about and listen to how the descendants of Esau have in multiple cases destroyed the Most High's temple. And that's why sometimes throughout scripture, you'll see this phrase called, where it says the vengeance of his temple. And I remember the first, a couple of times I read that, I was like, the vengeance of his temple. Why is the Most High bringing up the vengeance of his temple? Like, what's that all about? It is about Esau. Esau destroyed the Most High's temple twice. In fact, let's see. This is Obadiah, and it says verse 6. Let me see if I can switch my screen, family, because I want to read this off of the King James online. So let me see if this works. Hang on a second. Let's see. I want to share my screen. Hopefully this works, family. Let's see. Downloads Obadiah. All right. So hopefully you can see my screen. So this is what we're looking at. We're looking at, you can see Obadiah, King James. And let's go down to, let's start at verse 6, just for time purposes. And again, we're going to read about, what the Most High has to say about Esau. What's Esau's fate? And so Obadiah chapter 1, verse 6, and it reads, how are the things of Esau searched out? How are his hidden things sought up? All of the men of thy confederacy have brought thee even to the border. The men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee and prevailed against thee. They that eat thy bread have laid a wound under thee. There is none understanding in him. Shall I not in that day, says YAHUAH, even destroy the wise men out of Edom and understanding out of the mount of Esau? Verse 9. And thy mighty men, O Teman, shall be dismayed, to the end that every one of the mount of Esau may be cut off by slaughter. For thy violence against thy brother Jacob, Israel, shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off forever. In the day that thou stoodest on the other side, in the day that the strangers carried away captive his forces, and foreigners entered into his gates and cast lots upon Jerusalem, even thou was as one of them. So keep in mind, family, this is before 70 AD. This is before, Rome sacked Jerusalem. So this is referring to a previous event that Esau did all this stuff, right? This is during when Jerusalem was sacked and the temple was destroyed by Babylon, right? This is when the temple was sacked and destroyed by Babylon. And most folks don't know that Esau was there too, right? Esau was there among the others, or standing on the other side, doing all this wicked stuff against his brother Jacob. But let's keep reading, fam. Let's see, where do we leave off? Let's go at verse 11. And it reads, in the day that thou stoodest on the other side, in the day that the strangers carried away captive his forces, and foreigners entered into his gates and cast lots upon Jerusalem, even thou was as one of them. But thou should have not have looked on the day of thy brother, and the day that he became a stranger, neither should have thou have rejoiced over the children of Judah in the day of their destruction. Neither shouldst thou have spoken proudly in the day of their distress. Thou shouldst not have entered into the gates of my people in the day of their calamity. Yea, thou should have not hast looked on their affliction in the day of their calamity. Listen, family, says, nor have laid hands on their substance in the day of their calamity. So Esau grabbed their stuff. Verse 14, neither should have thou have stood in the crossway to cut off those of his that did escape. So our people actually escaped, but guess who tracked them down and turned them over? Check this out, fam. It says, starting at verse 14 at the beginning again, it says, neither should have thou have stood in the crossway to cut off those of his that did escape, neither should have thou have delivered up those of his that did remain in the day of distress. Verse 15, for the day of YAHUAH is near upon all the heathen. As thou hast done, it shall be done unto thee. Thy reward shall fall upon your own head. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. And actually, I was going to stop at verse 15. Like I said, just to drive home the fact, family, that Esau's verdict, his judgment, is that his reward is going to fall on his own head, and what he has done to the other people is going to happen to him. That's his judgment. But let me just read it just a little bit further, because let's see, shall be holiness, and the Jacob shall be their possession. Okay, yeah, no, we'll stop here. I was going to keep reading just to show you that Esau did actually take Jacob's land, but I think I have that in the slide over here. So let's switch back over to the slide. Let's do this, family. Let's go back over to our slide. All right, so the takeaway here, family, is that as Esau has done, it shall be done unto him. Right? It shall be done unto him. What does that have to do with the 9th of Av? All right. So here we are, family. Let's read about this. It says, this is Psalms 137, verse 7. And again, this is talking about Esau destroying the Most High's temple. And it says, this is Psalms chapter 137, and we'll start at verse 4. Actually, let me expand my screen so I can see it on my side. All right, so here's it says, how shall we sing YAHUAH's song in a strange land? If I forget thee, O Jerusalem, let my right hand forget her cunning. If I do not remember thee, let my tongue cleave to the roof of my mouth. If I prefer not Jerusalem above my chief joy, remember, O YAHUAH, the children of Edom in the day of Jerusalem, who said, raise it even to the foundation thereof. Raise it, family. If you don't know, it means they actually dug up the foundation stones out of the dirt, so that when you look upon it, it looks as though it was never there. Let's go back to verse 7. It says, remember, O YAHUAH, the children of Edom in the day of Jerusalem, who said, raise it even to the foundation thereof. O daughter of Babylon, who art to be destroyed. Happy shall he be that rewardeth you, listen, family, as you have served us. There's that judgment upon Esau. Look, happy shall he be that reward you as you have served us. Happy shall he be that taketh and dashes your little ones against the stone. All right. So again, you can see that in this scripture, you can see that in the day of Jerusalem, again, this is talking about Esau destroying the temple, destroying the Most High YAH's temple, even going as far as digging up the foundation stones. And so that was Babylon. That was like when Babylon came and destroyed the temple of Jerusalem. But what about Rome? What about when Rome came into Jerusalem and destroyed the temple, did the exact same thing? So let's take a look at that. Let's watch this quick video, family. Let's do what's the next? Bear with me just for a second, family. I'm trying to grab my Let's see, add that. Let me add it to stage. I may have to re-add it. Yeah, let me re-add it. Hang on a second, fam. Let me stop my screen share. Before the destruction. Yep, think I forgot to add my video in here. Let me just grab it off my computer. It'll take just a moment. So we will grab Jerusalem destruction. There it is. All right, here we go. The utmost exertions of Titus to save the temple were, however, ineffectual. Our Savior had foretold its total destruction, and his awful prediction was about to be accomplished. And now, says Josephus, the fatal day approached, and the revolution of ages, the 10th of August, emphatically called the Day of Vengeance, in which the first temple had been destroyed by the king of Babylon. While Titus was reposing himself in his pavilion, a Roman soldier, without receiving any command, seized some of the blazing materials, and with the assistance of another soldier, who raised him from the ground, threw them through a window into one of the apartments that surrounded the sanctuary. The whole north side up to the 3rd floor was immediately enveloped in flames. The Jews, who now began to suppose heaven had forsaken them, rushed in with violent lamentations and spared no effort, not even life itself, to preserve the sacred edifice on which they had rested their security. Titus, being awakened by the outcry, hastened to the spot and commanded his soldiers to exert themselves to the utmost to extinguish the fire. He called, he urged, and threatened his men, but so great was the clamor and the tumult that his entreaties and menaces were alike disregarded. The exasperated Romans who resorted thither from the camp were engaged either in increasing conflagration or killing the Jews. The dead were heaped about the altar, and a stream of blood flowed at its steps. Still, as the flames had not reached the inner part of the temple, Titus with some of his chief officers entered the sanctuary and most holy place, which excited his astonishment and admiration. After having in vain repeated his attempts to prevent its destruction, he saved the golden candlestick, the table of showbread, the altar of perfumes, which were all of pure gold, and the volume of the law, wrapped up in a rich golden tissue. Upon his leaving the sacred place, some other soldiers set fire to it, after tearing off the golden plating from the gates and timberwork. A horrid massacre soon followed, in which prodigious multitudes perished, while others rushed in a kind of frenzy into the midst of the flames and precipitated themselves from the battlements of their falling temple. 6,000 persons, who, deluded by a false prophet with hopes of a miracle, of a miraculous deliverance, had fled to a gallery yet standing without the temple, perished at once by the relentless barbarity of the soldiers, who set it on fire and suffered none to escape. The conquerors carried their fury to such a height as to massacre all they met without distinction of age, sex, or quality. They also burnt all the treasure houses, containing vast quantities of money, plate, and the richest furniture. In a word, they continued to mark their progress with fire and sword, till they had destroyed all, except 2 of the temple gates, and that part of the court which was destined for the women. When the sword had returned to its scabbard for want of objects whereon to exercise its fury, and the troops were satisfied with plunder, Titus commanded the whole city and temple to be demolished. Upon viewing the strength of the works, he exclaimed, "We have fought with the assistance of God. It was God who drove the Jews out of these fortifications. For what can the hands of men or the force of machines effect against these towers?" In order to give posterity an idea of the strength of the city and the astonishing valor of its conquerors, he preserved the highest towers, Phasaelus, Hippicus, and Maron, and a part of the wall which surrounded Jerusalem to the west. All the other circuit of the city was so leveled as not to leave those who approached it any proof that it ever had been inhabited. It is recorded in the Talmud and by Maimonides that Terentius Rufus plowed up the foundations of the temple. Thus were our Savior's prophecies fulfilled. Thy enemies shall lay thee even with the ground, and there shall not be left one stone upon another. And so the descendants of Edom destroyed the Most High YAH's temple and burned it to the ground, going as far as to dig up the very foundation stones of his holy temple in an attempt to erase any evidence of its existence, which explains why YAHUAH's judgment against Edom is sometimes referred to as the vengeance of his temple. Oh yes, YAHUAH is prophesied to pay Esau back in what's called the Day of the Lord. Obadiah chapter 1 verse 8 reads, Shall I not in that day, says YAHUAH, even destroy the wise man out of Edom, and understanding out of the mount of Esau, and thy mighty man, O Teman, shall be dismayed, to the end that every one of the mount of Esau may be cut off by slaughter. For thy violence against thy brother Jacob, shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off forever. And the day that thou stoodest on the other side, and the day that strangers carried away captive his foes, and foreigners entered into his gate, and cast lots upon Jerusalem, even thou wast as one of them. But thou shouldest not have looked on the day of thy brother in the day that he became a stranger. Neither shouldest thou have rejoiced over the children of Judah in the day of their destruction. Neither shouldest thou have spoken proudly in the day of distress. Thou shouldst not have entered into the gate of my people in the day of their calamity. Yea, thou shouldst not have looked on their affliction in the day of their calamity, nor have laid hands on their substance in the day of their calamity. Neither shouldst thou have stood in the crossway to cut off those of his that did escape. Neither shouldst thou have delivered up those of his that did remain in the day of distress. All right. Well, as you can tell, family, so Esau has done it, right? And he did it twice, right? Destroyed the Most High's temple, dug it up. I mean, his hatred for the Most High and us, and for the children of Israel was so complete that he went and destroyed the Most High's temple. Actually, when you read the books, family, like I want to say Hannah Adams is one of the historical authors that captured this event, among others. But what you'll find, family, is that like in 70 AD, when General Titus was destroying Jerusalem, it wasn't. I mean, on multiple occasions he tried to get the opposition to surrender, right? Because he didn't. His goal was not to burn Jerusalem to the ground. He wanted to save the temple. Like that was his main goal, was to save the temple. But as illustrated in this short video clip, it was the Edomites that were within the regiment, the Roman regiment, and they went on their own and burned it down. And then they dug up the foundation stones and covered it up. And at the end of that book, at that story, what you'll find is that they covered it up so that when you looked upon where the temple was, you couldn't tell it was there because they put dirt on top of it and all that stuff. So needless to say, the Most High has a big payback coming for Esau, Edom. Now, with that being said, and family, just so that you know, when the temple was destroyed by Babylon, that was on the 9th of Av. When the temple was destroyed by the Romans, by General Titus, that too was on the 9th of Av. And a couple of other major events that also occurred on the 9th of Av, when the Jews were in Spain. Of course, I won't go into a whole lot about that history here, but just know that in 711 AD, the Moors and the Jews, they took over the Iberian Peninsula, which is what we call Spain and Portugal today. They took it over in 711 AD. The Jews, lived in peace. Of course, I'm using, the world's terms, Jews. We normally use Israelites, but just for the purpose of this lesson, and for the benefit of those who may not be familiar with it. So we'll just use Jews for now. But the Jews flourished in Spain and Portugal for a time until the curses, of course, caught up with them, and then they were expelled. And that expulsion, and just to let you know that their numbers, swelled in Spain to, what folks would say like over 1 million people in Spain and Portugal. Well, in 1492, Spain expelled their Jews. There was this expulsion edict. And that expulsion occurred again on the 9th of Av, on the 9th of Av. So again, this date, family, is significant in the body of Israel. This is why, when it comes to remembrance, this is why tonight, starting tonight or tomorrow, why tomorrow is a day of remembrance for us. Like the whole reason why a lot of us, or most of us, or any of us of Israel are here in these United States or wherever you are in the diaspora, goes back to the 9th of Av, right? It goes back to those expulsions, which is why we're here. So, takeaway number one from this video, family, is this is a day for Israel as a whole to remember, right? It's not a joyous occasion, but it is a day for us to remember. And the other thing, family, is now that we know that Esau's hands were in both of those events, like Esau, like I said before, Esau's hands was in the destruction of Babylon. Esau's hands are the destruction of the temple by Babylon, and Esau's hands were in the destruction of the temple by Rome, and Esau's hands were also in the expulsion of the Jews from Spain and Portugal, or from Spain in 1492. Again, same people, family, over and over and over and over again. So remember what, as the scripture says, as you have done, it shall be done unto thee. All right. And let's see here. Ezekiel chapter 36, verse 5. Therefore, thus says YAHUAH, surely in the fire of my jealousy have I spoken against the residue of the heathen, and against all Idumea, which have appointed my land into their possession, with the joy of all their heart, with despiteful minds, to cast it out for prey. Now, this is another one of those verses, family, that a lot of, these apologists, you can call them urban, or just Christians as a whole, a lot of them, especially in the prophecy field, they will avoid this, these verses like the plague. Like these verses, like Ezekiel 36, verse 5, Ezekiel chapter 36, verse 5, talks about how Esau was prophesied to take over the land of Israel, right? In the last days, Esau was, according to this, you can read it here where it says, you have appointed, which have appointed my land into their possession. So Esau has the land of the Most High. That's another thing that the Most High is going to pay him back about, right? Esau had the nerve to go in and take the Most High's land and make it his own. So this is one of those things, family, where we know who's in Israel today because it was prophesied that Esau would have the land, not the children of Israel, right? And then let's take a look at Ezekiel chapter 35, verse. I guess we can read this down in context. Let's see. Yeah, let's read this down in context. Now, just a FYI, so in this one, family, just know that when it says Mount Seir is another synonym for Esau. So it's also talking about the descendants of Esau when you see the words Mount Seir or the phrase Mount Seir. So, okay. But it says like Ezekiel chapter 35 verse, and we'll pick this up at verse 7. Let me expand my screen. It says, thus will I make Mount Seir most desolate, and cut off from it that have passes out, and him that returneth. And I will fill his mountains with his slain men. In thy hills and in thy valleys and in all thy rivers shall they fall that are slain with the sword. I will make thee perpetual desolations, and thy cities shall not return. And you shall know that I am YAHUAH, because thou hast said, again talking to Esau, these two nations and these two countries shall be mine, and we shall possess it. There it is again. Esau's taking possession of the land. Verse 10 again, because you have said, these two nations, that's the northern kingdom of Israel and the southern kingdom of Israel. It says, these two nations and these two countries shall be mine, and we will possess it. Whereas YAHUAH was there. Therefore, verse 11, as I live, says YAHUAH. You can taste that. It says, I will even do according to your anger and according to your envy, which you have used out of your hatred against them. And now this is the Most High speaking now. It says, and I will make myself known among them, that's Israel, when I have judged thee. You gotta let that sink in, fam. The reason why I have this highlighted is because, you know, we know, or what we tell people is that we're in the Great Awakening, right? We have people, you know, so-called African Americans, so-called Negro spirit, you know, spread to the four corners of the earth, waking up to who they are, who we are, right? Having our history returned back unto us. And this is a Great Awakening. But with all that being said, when the Most High judges Edom, Esau, whom, you know, most of the world are decreeing and declaring to be Israel, right? When the Most High judges them, that's when the Most High, it says, I will make myself known among them when I have judged Esau. So when this happens, you're going to talk about an even greater awakening, because a lot of people are going to say, well, wait a minute. I thought y'all were the people. I thought you guys were unbeatable, unstoppable. You guys just got rolled. You got rolled by the Medes, right? But let's keep going. Verse 12, and it says, and against the mountains, it says, and thou shalt know that I am YAHUAH, and that I have heard all thy blasphemies, which thou hast spoken against the mountains of Israel, saying, they are laid waste. They are given unto us to consume. Again, to take it, it says, thus with your mouth you have boasted against me, and have multiplied your words against me, and I have heard it. This is how you know Esau's days are numbered, and the Most High is coming. And this is why, family, as Esau's empires are crumbling down, he's trying to burn the house as he goes, right? He's trying to get the places where Israel is, where Israel is living today. He's trying to get those places destroyed, right? He's trying to get those nations to fight against each other so that Esau can take everybody out with him. But that's not going to happen. All right, so I'm going to switch slides here, family, because there's two main things I wanted to share with you today. One was I wanted to share with you the importance of, or partially the importance of the 9th of Av. Just to show you that when Jerusalem, the two times that the temple in Jerusalem were destroyed, they both occurred on the 9th of Av. When in 1492, when the Jews in Spain and Portugal were expelled from Spain, which actually kicked off the transatlantic slave trade, because you have to remember, the Jews were expelled in 1492. A lot of them fled over into Africa. It says most of them went over into Africa, and they fled to the exact same places where the transatlantic slave trade would kick off or start from less than 10 years later, right? So 1492 kicked off. 1501, the transatlantic slave trade started in the same places that the Israelites were, fled to, right? But so that's like I said, that's the importance of the 9th of Av, or part of the importance of the 9th of Av. Now, to help understand the second part of the 9th of Av, I got to take you back to the eclipse and the sign of the woman and the lion, or the Aleph and the Tav across America. The Aleph and the Tav across America. And this was an old video that we did a few months ago. It says the lion, the woman, and the world. The lion, the woman, and the world. But the purpose of this one, family, is to let's revisit those signs that we saw in heaven, because they also play a part in understanding the ninth of Av. So remember, if you remember, family, we had those signs come across America, and we know the importance of the signs, because we can go to Genesis chapter 1, verse 14, where it says, "And YAHUAH said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and for years." So we know that those signs, those eclipses are put there to signify something, right? The Most High is communicating to us through those events. And even here, family, you can see in Luke chapter 21, and let's see, I think this is verse, let's start off in verse 25. It says, "And there will be signs in the sun, in the moon, and in the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring. Men's heart failing them for fear and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth. For the powers of heaven shall be shaken, and they shall," it says, "and then shall they see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory." So hallelujah. When we see all these things happen, earthquakes, signs in the heaven, the Most High, the Yahushua is coming, right? He's coming back. But let's keep reading, family. Just like I said, we're just going to recap what happened earlier in the year. And so just so that you know what you're looking at, family, this is a picture of the actual Israelites. I want to say roughly 700 BC, like around that time frame, but this is BC. And this is literally what you're looking at are the depictions of the children of Judah. These are the depictions of the children of Judah. And what you'll notice is that their hair is short, nappy, and woolly hair, right? Short, nappy, woolly hair. And just gonna go through a few more of these pictures. Always have to include these in the slides, family, just so that, we're all on the same page as far as what we're talking about when we say the children of Judah. These are the ancient depictions of the children of Judah. And this is actually at the British Museum in London. And it's at an exhibit called the Lakesh Relief, where it depicts where the Assyrians in around 700 BC depicted the ancient Israelites, the ancient tribe of Judah. All right, this is just additional pictures so that you can see without a doubt they don't have long surfer dude hair, right? It's that short, nappy Kyrie Irving hair, right? All right, so and just for comparison, you can tell that the one on the left does not look like the one on the right. So it speaks for itself, family. I mean, anyone can see that the ancient Israelites on the left do not look like the modern Israelites on the right. All right, it looks like little baby Afro Duncan Kyrie Bruce. All right, and then in addition to the depictions, there's also cranial analysis. I won't go too deep into this, but just know that when they looked at the skulls, they know that the skulls, they measure how long the skulls are. They call it the cephalic index. And they said that the normally so-called African Americans, they have a cephalic, a certain cephalic index range. And the modern day Ashkenazis have a certain cephalic index range, as well as Europeans have a certain cephalic index range. And when they looked at the cephalic indexes of these ancient Israelites, it was a mass grave site at Lakesh. So, Lakesh, Lakesh, we have that stone monument, that stone relief, but we also have bones. We have these skulls there. And when they looked at the skulls had the cephalic index range of the Negro. So not only did we have the short, nappy, woolly hair, but we also have skulls that match the skulls of Negroes. And here they call it Egypto-Nubian skulls. All right. So said all that to say this, family. So we started off in 2017, and we had this X being written across the U.S. 2017, it goes from, literally starts in a town called Salem, Oregon, and it ends in Charleston, South Carolina. And then that was the 2017. And then the other one starts off at a place called Eagles Pass, right? And this is the place where, they were having the dispute about people crossing over from Mexico over into Texas, and that there was this standoff between the local law enforcement and the National Guard. Well, that was in Eagles Pass. And that was the very first place where the eclipse moved into the United States. And then what we did was that we looked at the history of Eagles Pass, and we found that Eagles Pass was known as a way of escape for slaves fleeing to freedom. So in 2024, the last eclipse that occurred to cause this TAV, or this X across the U.S., started off in the place that was synonymous with people that were in captivity that were going to freedom. And then it crossed over the X, where X marks the spot that was over a place called Little Egypt. So again, this is talking about captivity. And then it ended in a place called, I think it was Mars Hill, and I forgot the other city that was up there. But again, Mars Hill is also in the Bible, right? And Mars Hill was synonymous about, I think it was the Apostle Paul telling the Israelites who were in captivity at that time to turn back to the Most High. So this all has to do with Israel, family. I'm telling you, all has to do with Israel. So this is what we saw. And then in addition to that, we saw that when we added the solar, let me pull the dates up here because I don't have the dates right in front of me. What was that other eclipse? Oh, it's called an annular eclipse. Sorry, it was called an annular eclipse. When you add the annular eclipse that also started off in Oregon and went down into San Antonio, Texas, what you'll find is that it also created a Hebrew symbol, an aleph, right? An aleph. So basically, we have two symbols represented by by these eclipses, the aleph and the tav, which is the sign and the symbol of the Messiah. Because the Messiah says, I am the aleph and the tav, right? And you can see this is in Revelations chapter 22, verse 3, where it says, and again, let me expand my screen. It says, I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, the first and the last, right? And this is Hamashiach. This is the Messiah. So he says, I am the Alpha and Omega, the beginning of the end, the first and the last. Blessed are they that do his commandments, and they that have the right to the tree of life, and may enter in through the gates into the city. For without or outside are dogs, sorcerers, and whoremongers, and murderers, and idolaters, and whosoever loveth and maketh a lie. And I, Yahushua, have sent mine angel to testify unto you these things in the churches. I am the root and the offspring of Dawid, and the bright and the morning star. Hallelujah. All right. So at least you can see, family, that the aleph and the tav is the sign of the Messiah. And we had this aleph and tav written across the U.S. 2024, earlier this year. Remember, that was in April. So in April. So here we are sitting in August, and we're at a crossroads for World War III. We are at the 9th of Av. Let's tie all this stuff together. Let's tie all this together, family. But let's see. And this is still, let's skip this one. All right. So another takeaway from this sign that was written across the U.S., a foreboding sign. One of the takeaways was, not only did it write across the U.S., but we also wanted to pay attention to when you're in the U.S. and you're looking up in the sky, when that eclipse occurred, because most of the people, if you saw all the pictures, people were, they were celebrating and all this other stuff, but they weren't paying attention to the constellation that was in place, or the constellation that the eclipse occurred in. Right. And that was the lesson. If you ever have a chance, family, go back and watch the lesson that's associated with that. But the lesson, family, in that lesson, we pointed out that the first eclipse, which signifies a foreboding, right, which signifies doom. The first eclipse occurred in the constellation of Leo. So it occurred in the constellation of the lion. The lion represents Judah. The lion represents the house of Judah. So that was a foreboding sign, right? And then when we had the other eclipse, I think it was the annular eclipse, that occurred in the woman. The woman, again, is synonymous with the tribe of Israel, or the house of Israel. But family, when that third eclipse occurred in 2024, earlier this year in April, neither did it occur in the lion nor the woman, right? And if I remember correctly, I believe it occurred close to the serpent. Close to the serpent. So what does all this mean, Benaiah? What are you trying to say? Well, I guess what we'll do is that what we'll notice is that just like there were signs in the stars and in the heavens, when those eclipses came across the U.S., what I want to show you is there are signs in the heavens that are associated with the 9th of Av. And so for that, let me pull up this video. And I actually know I didn't load this one. So let me grab this one off my laptop. And let's check out this short video clip. Let's grab it here.
Saints, 2 instances in a row, World War I and World War II. Saints, 2 instances in a row, World War I and World War II have followed the same exact pattern. God's celestial signs are supernatural by design. I literally can't overstate that. This moves beyond coincidence, as we now have 2 variables locking in our Venus and Leo war connection. That itself, Venus being in Leo, but also that 3 years previous, a necessary condition is that at the time of a solar eclipse, if Venus is in Taurus, then war will break out 3 years later. Because think about it, without the solar eclipse aspect, Venus goes into Leo twice a year. So someone might say, well, what are you trying to say? War will break out twice a year every time Venus is in Leo? No. The set condition is that at a time of a solar eclipse, if Venus is in Taurus, war is coming, following the World War I, World War II pattern. You see, the reason why I began with that celestial sign pattern of the 3-year gap marking World War I, World War II, and World War III, it turns out, now switching to this side, that the 9th of Av that marked the destruction of Jerusalem followed the same celestial pattern with an eclipse, and then 3 years later, Venus is in Leo. And so the connection point is God's celestial signs to all 4 events. And even more so, the celestial signs aspect than the 9th of Av pattern. In fact, stressing that point. But moving this forward, how does this pertain to right now, to the 9th of Av this year, 8/12 and 8/13? Well, pulling up a video from Stellarium and starting where we left off from 7:30. As Venus traverses through the constellation of Leo, it is in the middle of Leo on August 12th and August 13th. Matching the same exact.
All right. Well, just to translate, family. Now, I forgot to put this disclaimer out. I'm not setting any dates, so don't go and grab don't go and grab your passport or anything like that. Actually, let me make sure this video stopped in the background. There we go. Don't go out and grab a passport, right? Hop on a plane, anything like that, unless the Most High is leading you to do it, right? But so with that being said, not. Oh yeah, thank you, Rick S. Fair use. All right. But let me go back to beginning presentation. Let me go back to here. There we go. So not setting any dates, but I did want to show you this pattern, right? Did want to show you this pattern. And actually, it might be better for me to pull up this video because just to point out what I'm talking about. So I'm going to pause it. All right. So hopefully you can see that, fam. All right. So basically, fam, what he's saying, and like I said, take this with a grain of salt, is that the pattern, right? The pattern, and this is the whole reason why I showed the video of the fall of Jerusalem, was just to show you that the fall of Jerusalem was preceded by signs and wonders. Like that's what you see in the books. You see when 70 AD occurred, there were eclipses, there was a star, there was an earthquake. I mean, all these signs occurred in the heaven, years before, leading up to 70 AD as a warning. And unfortunately, what these books point out is that our people in Jerusalem didn't heed the signs, or they mistook the signs, right? They interpreted it as something else. One of these books said that, when Israel saw the signs, they thought it was a sign for good, for good cheer, right? For good things to come. But it was really a foreboding of bad times to come for Israel. So with that being said, in 70 AD, there were signs that led up to, the destruction of the temple. Also, what this person is pointing out is that when you look at World War I, World War II, you have this pattern of the eclipse, this pattern of the eclipse occurring, and then in Leo, which is again the constellation which you can say it represents Judah, right? Leo, in Leo, we have Venus. Whenever Venus goes through Leo after this eclipse, we had World War I 3 years later. Same thing, World War II. He said the exact same pattern occurred there. And then also with 70 AD, a similar one occurred in 70 AD. However, the way that it occurred in 70 AD is, I guess, the way he's breaking it down is it's lining up to the 9th of, I'm sorry, let me back up. In 70 AD, it occurred on the 9th of Av, right? The temple was destroyed on the 9th of Av. World War I didn't start in the 9th of Av. World War II didn't start in the 9th of Av, right? But when the temple was destroyed, it was destroyed on the 9th of Av. And before it was destroyed, 3 years earlier, they had the eclipse and they had Venus going through Judah. That was the pattern, right? So one of the things that he's making folks aware of, he's saying, well, hey, not setting any dates, but it's just letting you know that this same pattern of Venus occurring 3 years earlier, he's saying that occurred in 70 AD. And he says, this is also relevant today, right? He's saying that that's relevant to today. And, what we're coming up on the 9th of Av. So with that being said, family, if the pattern holds, it means that we're on the precipice of World War III. And of course, when you look at the news, the news will, is saying that, we're closer to World War III today than we have ever been. Like there's no time or period of time in history that we've been close to World War III. Right. But according to this pattern, if the pattern holds, what it's saying is that we are very, very close to World War III, and the 9th of Av, will it happen on the 9th of Av? I don't know. Around the 9th of Av, I don't know. The Jerusalem Post, which we started off the video showing you, they thought that it was going to occur on the 9th of Av because they know history. They know history. They know that the Most High said, I'm going to pay you back like you paid me back, like you did me. I'm gonna do you like you did me. And the way that Rome and the way that, the Romans, the Babylonians, hashtag Esau, destroyed the Most High temple, he did it on the 9th of Av. So again, Most High said, I'm going to pay you back the exact same way you did me. So that's why Esau is hypersensitive right now on the 9th of Av. Right. He's got the U.S. over there. He's got all these allies with airplanes and missiles to try to shoot stuff down because, he and Netanyahu is in the bunkers along with his generals and stuff like that, because they know the scriptures. They know what they did, and they know that the Most High YAH is coming. So last words, family. Not setting any dates, but just letting you know that if the pattern holds, we are very close to World War III, based off of the eclipses and Venus going through the constellation of Leo. Hallelujah. All right. Well, that is it, family. And let's see, did I make it under an hour this time? Well, it's nope. 3 minutes over. Well, it's still close enough, family. Close enough. Well, all right. Well, praise the Most High, family. Hey, love you, Mishpachah. Love you, family. Thank you, everyone, for dialing in. And again, just want to reiterate, not setting any dates, but just be mindful that there is a pattern out there, and if the pattern holds, is something's supposed to happen soon. I'll just leave it that way. Something's supposed to happen soon if this pattern holds true. Got it? All right. All right. Well, love you, Mishpachah. And we will all check out what happens in these next few days together. And we'll see if Iran replies on the 9th of Av or if he waits till later. And we'll just wait and see what happens. All right. All right, Mishpachah. Talk to you later. And shalom. Family, Savior had foretold its total destruction, and his awful prediction was about to be accomplished. And now, says Josephus, the fatal day approached, and the revolution of ages, the 10th of August, emphatically called the Day of Vengeance, in which the first temple had been destroyed by the king of Babylon. While Titus was reposing himself in his pavilion, a Roman soldier, without receiving any command, seized some of the blazing materials, and with the assistance of another soldier, who raised him from the ground, threw them through a window into one of the apartments that surrounded the sanctuary. The whole north side up to the 3rd floor was immediately enveloped in flames. The Jews, who now began to suppose heaven had forsaken them, rushed in with violent lamentations and spared no effort, not even life itself, to preserve the sacred edifice on which they had rested their security. Titus, being awakened by the outcry, hastened to the spot and commanded his soldiers to exert themselves to the utmost to extinguish the fire. He called, he urged, and threatened his men, but so great was the clamor and the tumult that his entreaties and menaces were alike disregarded. The exasperated Romans, who resorted thither from the camp, were engaged either in increasing conflagration or killing the Jews. The dead were heaped about the altar, and a stream of blood flowed at its steps. Still, as the flames had not reached the inner part of the temple, Titus with some of his chief officers entered the sanctuary and most holy place, which excited his astonishment and admiration. After having in vain repeated his attempts to prevent its destruction, he saved the golden candlestick, the table of showbread, the altar of perfumes, which were all of pure gold, and the volume of the law, wrapped up in a rich golden tissue. Upon his leaving the sacred place, some other soldiers set fire to it, after tearing off the golden plating from the gates and timberwork. A horrid massacre soon followed, in which prodigious multitudes perished, while others rushed in a kind of frenzy into the midst of the flames and precipitated themselves from the battlements of their falling temple. 6,000 persons, who, deluded by a false prophet with hopes of a miracle, of a miraculous deliverance, had fled to a gallery yet standing without the temple, perished at once by the relentless barbarity of the soldiers, who set it on fire and suffered none to escape. The conquerors carried their fury to such a height as to massacre all they met without distinction of age, sex, or quality. They also burnt all the treasure houses, containing vast quantities of money, plate, and the richest furniture. In a word, they continued to mark their progress with fire and sword, till they had destroyed all, except 2 of the temple gates, and that part of the court which was destined for the women. When the sword had returned to its scabbard for want of objects whereon to exercise its fury, and the troops were satisfied with plunder, Titus commanded the whole city and temple to be demolished. Upon viewing the strength of the works, he exclaimed, "We have fought with the assistance of God. It was God who drove the Jews out of these fortifications. For what can the hands of men or the force of machines effect against these towers?" In order to give posterity an idea of the strength of the city and the astonishing valor of its conquerors, he preserved the highest towers, Phasaelus, Hippicus, and Marim, in a part of the wall which surrounded Jerusalem to the west. All the other circuit of the city was so leveled as not to leave those who approached it any proof that it ever had been inhabited. It is recorded in the Talmud and by Maimonides that Terentius Rufus plowed up the foundations of the temple. Thus were our Savior's prophecies fulfilled. Thy enemies shall lay thee even with the ground, and there shall not be left one stone upon another. And so the descendants of Edom destroyed the Most High YAH's temple and burned it to the ground, going as far as to dig up the very foundation stones of his holy temple in an attempt to erase any evidence of its existence, which explains why YAHUAH's judgment against Edom is sometimes referred to as the vengeance of his temple. Oh yes, YAHUAH is prophesied to pay Esau back in what's called the day of the Lord. Obadiah chapter 1 verse 8 reads, "Shall I not in that day, says YAHUAH, even destroy the wise man out of Edom, and understanding out of the mount of Esau, and thy mighty man, O Teman, shall be dismayed, to the end that every one of the mount of Esau may be cut off by slaughter. For thy violence against thy brother Jacob, shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off forever. And the day that thou stoodest on the other side, and the day that strangers carried away captive his foes, and foreigners entered into his gate, and cast lots upon Jerusalem, even thou wast as one of them. But thou shouldest not have looked on the day of thy brother in the day that he became a stranger. Neither shouldest thou have rejoiced over the children of Judah in the day of their destruction. Neither shouldest thou have spoken proudly in the day of distress. Thou shouldst not have entered into the gate of my people in the day of their calamity. Yea, thou shouldst not have looked on their affliction in the day of their calamity, nor have laid hands on their substance in the day of their calamity. Neither shouldst thou have stood in the crossway to cut off those of his that did escape. Neither shouldst thou have delivered up those of his that did remain in the day of distress. And so, family, Esau's days are numbered, and the Most High will pay him back in full. And with that, family, thank you for taking the time to watch and support. Thank you for those who continue to lift me and my family and the whole house of Israel up in your thoughts and prayers. And thank you for those who continue to share these videos with your family and friends. Well, Israel, hope you enjoyed it. Stay blessed and shalom.